Welcome to Listen to Your Skin by Moon and Skin, the podcast where science meets nature to celebrate the story of your skin. Your skin is a living canvas, ever evolving, deeply personal, and uniquely yours. Each week, we'll dive into the science of healthy skin, share empowering stories, and uncover transformative self-care rituals. We're here to help you embrace every phase of your journey with confidence and care.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Listen to Your Skin podcast by Moon and Skin. I'm your host, Dr. Jen Haley, and today on the podcast, I have a friend and colleague, Dr. Brooke Jeffy. She is a fellow board-certified dermatologist with a very unique practice. She has a concierge medical dermatology and cosmetic practice in Scottsdale, Arizona, where she applies her holistic approach to skin health. Dr. Jeffy is particularly passionate about treating adolescent skin and creating routines for a lifetime of healthy skin. And this is what led her to found the company Between, BTWN. It's a skincare line for tweens and teens. She's a trusted media expert, mom, and loves all things dermatology and skincare. Welcome to the show, Brooke.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you. So I know you're here in Scottsdale. I know you have a good practice and you have a great social media platform where you educate people. What drove you to create the skincare line Between and have a passion for educating?
Yeah, so there's really a lot of factors that came together to leading to this. So one thing is that in my employed practice, before I launched my own practice, I started to feel very much like I wasn't able to educate my patients on some of the things that seem simple but really make a huge difference. Like I'll give an example. If I was seeing an acne patient, a younger patient, it's very easy to say, okay, let's start you on this medical regimen and then just be sure you wash your face. But how are they washing their face? Are they actually washing their face? Are they getting any benefit from doing that, taking enough time to do it? So there started to be all these lifestyle factors that I began to appreciate. And that's just one simple example, but other things too that I felt like as I was learning more about lifestyle factors and their application to skin health that I wasn't able to address in, short appointment times. So that really led me to want to create a brand, which Between initially sort of just started out as going to be an educational brand to try to teach kids some things about lifestyle and how to wash their face and how to, parents to help them choose the right products. And then it kind of evolved as I saw more and more patients and parents asking me, well, what should I use? Like we used to say, okay, go get a Cetaphil cleanser, for example. There weren't that many products that they had. But as they've grown, they have multiple different lines, and it's just more and more confusing for parents to figure out what to purchase. So I saw this white space in the market. There are certainly now, in the last couple of years, a handful of brands like myself that have really been focused on teen and tween skin health that have come to market. But at that time, there really wasn't anything that was specific. So that's really what prompted me to think, okay, there is this white space as well. Let's do the education piece and let me see if I can provide some products that really make it simple for parents to know that these products that they would come to me for as a brand are okay for their young kids' skin and trustworthy. I have chosen to a certain beauty standard in skincare called Credo for clean beauty, as well as just avoiding the whole discussion about hormone disruptors. I just, whether or not that's true or not, chose to leave those out of my products. So again, just parents could feel comfortable with it.
Okay, let's talk about clean beauty a little bit because it's a term that's thrown around. So what do people use it as? How do they differentiate whether somebody's just throwing the term clean beauty versus whether it's really a clean product?
Well, I think all of it is just throwing a term around because there is no standard definition of clean beauty. There are some, so there's no fully 100% agreed upon standard. Now, I mentioned that with my skincare line, we did choose to go along with one company's standard. So there are a couple of these groups that are trying to make a standard definition, and one of them is Credo Beauty. So we did decide with Between to, follow those standards. But those are still just kind of, arbitrary standards out there that have to be agreed upon. So a company can mean anything. It can mean referring to their ingredients that they're defining as clean, whether or not that's true or not. It can refer to like their sustainability practices. So the bottom line is it can kind of mean anything to the brand.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So how do you spell Credo?
Credo.
So they would look for that on the label.
Yes, there are some brands that would say that they're Credo beauty compliant. Credo is also a website, and they sell brands that meet their standards.
Okay. And how is that different from like Leaping Bunny standards?
So Leaping Bunny is more of a cruelty-free standard, at least from what I understand.
That's how I understand it too.
Yeah. So there's cruelty-free. That's another, certification that a brand might put forth as something that they feel is important.
Okay. I think that's so important for people to hear about clean beauty, because it's so easy to just pronounce that you're all of these things. I mean, we see it all the time as dermatologists. I was blown away when I was at the Science of Skincare Summit last year and realized that I think about 17% of social media information is coming from dermatologists. And just for those of you who don't know, we went to high school, then 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of just studying skin, basically. And then years and years of practicing just skin. And someone can give out information nowadays and people say, oh, I saw it on the internet. I'm like, what in the world? I mean, the first thing I learned in college was to look at the source, and no one's looking at the source anymore. Like, who are people getting information from, and why would we trust it? Like, what's their background? I mean, over 20 years, I've seen so many trends come and go. So I get it. It's really hard as a dermatologist who's in such a busy practice, but when you see people following good guidelines and good science-backed skincare regimens, and then they're destroying their skin at home with other things that they find online, it can be quite disturbing. So what are some of those things that you see people doing, or that you saw some of the tweens and the teens doing that were disrupting your acne recommendations?
Sure. I mean, one thing is just multi-step regimens. So there are, kids are seeing influencers and who they deem are their peers online. And just like what you said, they feel like, oh, this is someone I should trust, or they're just constantly seeing in social media. So they feel like, oh, this is something I should be doing. But one huge thing that I see is multi-step regimens that is harmful. So I've seen kids doing 12 steps in a routine, which who knows how these products are interacting, what sort of benefit you can get. And, really it's just a path to irritation. But that's a huge one. Also the wrong products, kids shouldn't be using products that have retinol, for example. So we'll very commonly see breakouts, irritation, rashes when they're using these products that just really are not meant for them. But to your point about wanting to vet sources, when I am talking to parents or seeing my patients with acne, I'm always talking to them about like, why are you using these products? And when it comes up that, they've chosen this product because of something that they've seen online, I talk to both of them and try to educate them and like, look, this is a great opportunity to have a discussion about how to vet sources. Who should you be getting your information from in terms of skincare? And, that's probably dermatologists, maybe cosmetic chemists, maybe some estheticians, but, it's not your friend, or it's not this influencer that's just getting sent PR boxes so that they can do these get ready with me videos and gain followers. So I do like it for a conversation starter in terms of helping parents and kids understand how to vet sources.
Right. Yeah. What's the intention behind why someone is doing something? Mm-hmm. Is it to educate you and empower you to have healthy skin? Is it just to sell you a bunch of stuff? That's a good question to ask. Okay. So besides using multiple steps, which can destroy the skin barrier, we don't know how all the ingredients interact with each other. This is so interesting to me because when I was 10, 12 and I was babysitting, I would take all of my money and buy skincare. And at the very most, I would be able to afford 1 or 2 products. I don't even know how they're affording 12 products. It seems kind of crazy. The world we live in, it's just changed so much, right?
Yes, and I think you were ahead of your time. I mean, if you were even interested in skincare, I mean, that's definitely not what I was really into spending my money in. But you're exactly right. It's amazing now that these brands that have gone viral and have these very expensive products, like Drunk Elephant, for example, Glow Recipe, they have expensive products, and parents are willing to buy them, I guess, or their kids are convincing them, and they just feel like that's a good way to spend their money. I mean, it's just a very interesting twist, on what they're wanting to spend their money on. And it is definitely skincare. I mean, we've seen there's been an explosion in that segment of the Gen Alpha kids wanting to buy skincare, and fragrance too. That's another big growing area.
Gosh. Okay, so can you say that you have to have conversations with the parents as much as the kids? Equal?
I think so. I mean, obviously, as a parent, you sometimes want to, purchase something your child wants, but a lot of times parents, in my experience, they don't realize that there are negative consequences of some of these products that their child might want. But it's tough because, not every mom is a dermatologist. So they're just going by like, oh, my kiddo saw this, she wants it. I mean, it's no different than like when I was growing up and there's popular kids that, I was not the popular one. So it was like, there are these kids out there and, they have a cool brand of purse or jeans and I wanted that. And, maybe eventually I'd convince my mom to get me one of those things, but those were not products that could hurt me,
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, yeah, it can hurt your bank account, but it doesn't hurt your body, like
right.
misusing skincare.
Right.
That's really, really interesting. I have boys, so I don't have this problem at all. I mean, they're 18 and 20 now, and at the very most, if I can get them to use some like salicylic acid pads to wash their face, that was it. Like really not an issue at all. So, okay, so what's a basic skincare regimen for someone who's, let's just say 10, 11, even as young as 10, 11, starting to get some acne, not so bad that they need prescriptions, up until 15 or 16, where they're not really thinking about anti-aging per se. Like, what is a basic regimen and like, how do you get them rolling on this?
Yeah, so I think that the products you want to try to steer your kids to in that age group are cleansers, moisturizers, and sunscreens. They really do not need all these ancillary products, these facial mists that are popular, the serums. I mean, there may be some of those things in those categories that are okay, but largely you want to steer them to those categories. So when I have parents who have kids that want certain brands, I say, okay, if they really want that and you want to spend the money on that, that's fine, but stick to those core categories. And then you can feel relatively safe. It's another conversation, though, about like, are those truly great products for their skin? Because a lot of these more trendy products, they have a lot of potential allergens in them, fragrances, essential oils, things like this, which maybe are okay if there's a few, but I mean, you'll see some of these ingredient lists where it's just way too many, I think, potential allergens than what a child's skin needs to be exposed to. So, and then it's also talking to them about how to use these products. So, are they actually getting the benefit of cleansing their face?
How should they cleanse?
Well, want to definitely be sure they're using enough product. So again, that kind of depends a little bit on the formulation, but being sure that they're cleansing for 30 to 60 seconds and then rinsing really well. A lot of times when I talk to my patients, I end up finding out they put it on barely enough, and then they do it for like a split second and then it's washed off. I mean, so that is not enough for the cleanser to break down the oil, get rid of the debris, to keep their skin healthy and hopefully prevent those breakouts from worsening. The other thing that we don't talk about enough is sunscreen. I mean, that is really the key, and I think all dermatologists would agree with this. That is really the key to keeping the skin looking young, keeping the skin barrier looking nice and healthy, being able to work optimally. And that really, that's the product that I want to be viral and have all sorts of viral brands of, right? Because that is definitely not something that most of my patients come in saying that they use. And I think that is really important starting at a young age.
How old were you when you started using sunscreen?
Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible example because I was the person that worked in a tanning salon when I was in college and high school. So now I spend all of my time searching my skin for skin cancers and trying to reverse the damage that I did, right? So I would say that my son, though, I have a 15-year-old son, I have really tried his entire life to keep him covered, understanding the importance of sunscreen, but it's a struggle in those those years because they're trying to be independent. They don't understand the consequences. It's very hard to get them consistent, but I think if you can approach it like your skin will be clear. If you have acne, this is an important part of treatment actually, then you can make some headway.
Yeah, I think that's an important point because kids don't think about consequences. Like our brain is not fully developed until we're 26. So I'm constantly telling my sons, I go, the reason we send young men to war is because somebody will say, charge, and you'll just go charge. I go, you say that to a 30-year-old man, they're going to be like, hold on, let's think about this. If we charge, this might happen and this might happen. So I think boys just get up, they run out the door, and they don't always think about, putting on skincare. Meanwhile, having 6, 7, 8, 12 steps in a skincare regimen is almost a status symbol for girls. Sort of like the longevity lifestyle is a status symbol for celebrities and, and that whole health optimization world. So it's an interesting dichotomy for sure. When you're looking at skincare products, okay, so I want to talk about the cleanser first. So with cleanser, are you an advocate of twice-a-day cleansing? And if someone can only do it once, what would you choose?
Certainly, if they can only do it once, it's bedtime.
I agree, yeah.
Yes, many reasons that is important. If they're willing to do it twice, great, do it in the morning. I do think it's important if someone is struggling with early acne starting to appear, that they should think about trying to make that second morning cleanse happen.
Okay. And then why not retinol? If someone is struggling with acne, especially comedones, which are blackheads and whiteheads, we have always gone to retinoids, whether it's prescription strength tretinoin or retinol. So why are you not?
I am only not retinoid if a child has normal skin.
Got it. Okay.
Yes,
that's important to hear. Not everyone needs the same skincare.
Exactly. Of course, this conversation about avoiding active ingredients like retinol, for example, definitely means when a child has normal skin. Okay, so certainly retinoids we use to treat acne, even at a young age, if it's indicated. But most kids, I'm talking about the tween age group, for example, their skin is really sensitive. So if their skin is normal, it's not breaking out, they're going to really struggle to tolerate retinoids. And we know this as dermatologists too. I mean, a lot of times you're having to implement, even in adults, strategies to help them be able to tolerate the retinoid, right? You don't just necessarily go and have someone use it every day right out of the gate. You might be doing, alternating it, cycling it with other, other products so that maybe they're just using it a couple times a week, for example, and you're optimizing moisturization so the skin barrier stays healthy and hydrated. So, but I will say like the most significant reactions I've seen from kids are when they are using retinoid products. Again, kids with normal skin who come into me, their skin was fine. Mom brings them in now because they have a rash or they're breaking out horribly. And it is because they just started using some kind of retinol containing product that they thought looked cool.
Right. And they're using too much, too
much,
often,
too frequently.
and changing things up so quickly.
Right. And they're not getting any benefit from it. I mean, if their skin was clear before, we're not trying to treat acne. Mm-hmm. Kids have all the collagen they can have at that age. They don't need retinol to keep their collagen at that point. Not starting to break down until the 20s, 30s potentially, right? So they don't need it for the collagen anti-aging benefit. So it's just all risk, no benefit in a kiddo with normal skin.
Yeah, totally agree. I couldn't agree more. Okay, what about vitamin C? When do you think kids should start vitamin C? You think they should wait till their 20s? Is there really any benefit in your teens to starting vitamin C?
So vitamin C can be a useful antioxidant in sunscreens. So I am not opposed to a child using a sunscreen that has antioxidant in it. I think that's great. But I think that there are problems when a child uses something like a 15% ascorbic acid, because that can be very irritating. And again, it's just not something they're getting any benefit from. I mean, I guess it may be different if they have a lot of acne and they have pigment, and maybe you're trying to improve that to some degree. But again, I'm talking more about a child who has normal skin and making the correct decisions, for that group.
Okay, so tween, normal skin, wash in the morning. Basically, I like people to put the cleanser on, massage it in for about a minute, brush your teeth, and then rinse. And then who should use moisturizer, who should not use moisturizer? And what should they look for in a moisturizer when they're a tween?
Yeah, so that's, and I'd also like to say that, like, choosing a cleanser and a moisturizer should really both be based on skin type. And for kids, most of the time that's going to be erring on the side of products that are geared for sensitive skin. So in terms of a moisturizer, they're going to probably prefer lighter weight products. I mean, just as a preference point. But looking for products, I mean, in most major brands these days, they tell you really what the skin type is for. So if they lean to normal to sensitive skin, they can make some good decisions.
What if it says all skin types?
I think all skin types is probably acceptable too. You just wouldn't want to go with a product that says it's for really oily or acne prone skin if you're a child and you have normal skin.
Okay, that's really good. So what does your moisturizer have in it?
My moisturizer is pretty simple. It has glycerin primarily. It has Centella asiatica.
I love Centella asiatica.
I always struggle to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's go-to cola also. It's been on my radar ever since I read an article maybe 10 years ago about how it can help reverse stretch marks, because we don't have a lot of things in dermatology that help put things back in the skin. We're really good with lasers, and we're good with things to lighten the skin and things to remove pigmentation or, remove dead skin cells. But we have a hard time putting elastic tissue or collagen back in the skin, right? And I think it was oral in that study. They did like a dropper full of go-to cola to help with striae, which are stretch marks. But now we're seeing studies with mandelic acid on Centella asiatica helping with dermatoporosis or thinning of the collagen in the skin. So I love Centella asiatica. It's such a great ingredient.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I didn't know that about the stria. That's interesting.
And where it grows, this is really cool. So where it grows in Africa, when tigers are wounded, they will roll around in it to help healing.
I just learned this yesterday, actually.
We probably saw it on the same place. Was it an article or it was somewhere?
I was actually at an Ulta MD sunscreen talk, and their newest sunscreen, the UV Skin Recovery, has it in there, and they were sharing that same story. So very funny.
Really,
I did not know that until yesterday.
Yeah, I heard it like a week or two ago. I thought it was so interesting. I mean, all the best things are in nature. We just don't want to deplete nature in finding these resources like we were talking about offline. Okay, so you've got Centella asiatica, you've got glycerin, which is a very nice moisturizer with low allergens, very low allergens.
Glucomannan is in there, which is a supportive of the skin microbiome. And then there is a very, very low concentration of niacinamide.
Oh, I love niacin.
Yeah, which I think is great, but I do think there are products for kids that are not appropriate because they have too much niacinamide. Like, above 5%, I think is a little aggressive for kids.
It can be, it's so interesting because it can be inflammatory when it's high percentage, but when it's low, it's anti-inflammatory.
Anti-inflammatory, exactly, and can be just like a super gentle exfoliant.
Like Goldilocks, like more is not better. That's the main thing I think kids need to get out of this conversation is more is not better. It's just more irritating and it makes your skin more angry and confused.
Yeah, and then, we are learning more and more, right, about the damage that chronic inflammation causes in our body, right, and in our, in our skin barrier as well. So even if you're not seeing like some kind of dramatic rash, if you're using a product that kind of is not appropriate for your skin type, you're young, you're using a retinol that you don't need, maybe it's causing a little low level, like, inflammation and inflammaging even and damage to your collagen. We don't know the answer to all of that, but I think it's good practice to be sure that you're using something that's appropriate.
Okay. So niacinamide, centella, glycerin, glucomannan.
Those are kind of the main ingredients
Nice.
in the moisturizer.
Morning and night, just night. What do you?
I
How do people know what to use, right? Because a lot of acne or oily patients, and even myself, I tend to be pretty oily. I don't use a moisturizer during the day. Once in a while, I'll use a moisturizer with kojic acid because kojic acid can help with particulate matter. So if I'm in like a place of high toxins or pollution, like LA or New York, I will definitely put on a moisturizer with kojic acid to kind of help chelate that particulate matter. But for the most part, I tend to run oily, so I don't use a moisturizer during the day. So I know that a lot of teenagers, they are hesitant to use a moisturizer too. Do you find it benefits their skin to use a moisturizer or not?
I mean, I definitely think everyone's preference and how it reacts on their skin is different. I do think that they should be moisturizing probably at least once a day, but maybe it's just once a day. And then too, I wonder, and with you as well, like if I'm sure you're using a sunscreen every day. And so
I feel naked without a sunscreen.
Yeah.
I would be more comfortable sitting here naked with you than I would without sunscreen. I just wear tinted sunscreen and I'm lazy, so that's my makeup.
Yeah, same. But, depending on what sunscreen you're using, it might have a little bit of some moisturizing characteristic too. So just because you're not using a dedicated moisturizer, you probably are getting, most sunscreens now will have like some element of moisturizing, especially if you're like an adult woman using it for, that last step. So it may be that you're getting a little bit of moisture there in the morning. But I think, again, in terms of kids, I think the routine is also important. So, if they only want to use their moisturizer at night, that's fine. But I do think that they should probably be using it once a day. I mean, they are washing their face, they are exposing it to the elements. So I think a light moisturizer once a day is usually helpful and tolerated really well.
So really, it sounds like you're advocating 3 steps, 2 to 3 steps. So cleanse in the morning for 60 to 90 to 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes, basically. Let the actives get in your pores, remove the dead skin cells, remove the dirt, remove all the toxins that built up in your skin for the day, and then moisturizer. And if someone's oily in their T-zone, just apply it on the outside and the neck, because the neck is part of our face, which people overlook.
Great point.
30 years from now, our skin looks really different, right? And then sunscreen. So what do people look for in the sunscreen?
Yeah, so with the sunscreen, I think for younger skin, there's a lot of controversy about sunscreen, and I don't know how much we want to get into that. But
anything you want.
But I think, most parents feel more comfortable with, that I speak with a mineral sunscreen. And there are just great formulations now that are primarily zinc-containing sunscreens. So that's usually what I recommend. But if someone is very sensitive to the feel of it, because again, a sunscreen is only as good as if it's actually getting applied to the skin. So, I think all of us will generally tell patients, whatever you're willing to use is the best sunscreen. But like for a kid who might be struggling with a little bit of acne, maybe they don't like the feel necessarily of a mineral-only sunscreen, although again, there's so many great ones out there now. But a chemical sunscreen, I think, is fine if that's what they're willing to use.
Is SPF 70 better than SPF 30?
You get the majority of protection in the SPF 30. I generally say 30 is the minimum you want to use for day-to-day use. If you're going to be at the beach, I do think you get or the pool here in Arizona, you do get a little bit more incremental benefit if you bump up to a higher SPF, but the bulk of that protection is happening at 30.
Yeah, because if it's applied correctly,
yes,
it's blocking 98% of the rays if it's applied correctly.
And that's obviously another conversation about the amount that you're using, the amount that you're, the reapplication frequency that you're doing.
How do you recommend people apply sunscreen? I could tell you how I recommend it.
Sure.
Okay, so I typically, over the years, especially when I lived and worked in Colorado and Utah, where we didn't have tinted windows in the car, they weren't allowed. So I saw tons of skin cancers on the left side of the face and in men behind the ear on the neck, which we still always do, right? Because most of us, when we apply sunscreen, we put it on centrally and blend it outwards. So it's thickest centrally, and then it kind of dissipates, and we get thinner amounts applied outwards. So I tend to, like while someone's in their bra, apply it starting at the base of the neck, bring it in from the outside of the face to the central part of the face, and then you'll see the gaps on the central part of your face. And I apply it all the way up to the eyelids, on the eyelids, to the eyelid margin, especially getting the area of the medial canthus, like that area against the nose, because we know that the sun coming in through sunglasses will bounce off the sunglasses and hit that area. And we see a lot of cancers there. So we see these patterns on people year after year. So we see the gaps of where the sunscreen was not applied properly and people are getting hit a little bit extra with more DNA mutations. So that's kind of how I recommend people apply it. And then still wear a hat because it's a backup plan. It's not, it gives people sometimes a false sense of security, and then they stay out in the sun longer. So there's a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, no, those are all definitely good points and very similar to what I tell my patients. I mean, when I'm in the mirror applying my sunscreen, I definitely keep these things that, I mean, you'll see me like putting a ton of it on the upper cutaneous lip because I see so much like, problems there, and like the eyelids, like you said, because people I think don't realize that you should be protecting those. But yeah, that's definitely a good conversation to have and a good strategy. I like what you're telling people. It's similar, but I do think we all probably see those tendencies. And then the hat is important too, right? Because I mean, we get a lot of exposure on the scalp, and it's really hard to protect that area. I do always tell my patients, kids too, like the more you can rely on just the sun protective clothing and being covered, because, you don't have to reapply that. You don't have to worry about it being messy and getting all over the place. And then just try to focus the sunscreen where you can't cover, but obviously there's still areas that you have to use it on. And you're right. Most people don't reapply it enough. They don't put it on thick enough. We use it way too sparsely. Women and kids, if they're using like a tinted sunscreen, you can't rely on that for enough SPF because we don't layer on our makeup to the extent that we need to. I think I said tinted sunscreen. Tinted sunscreen is usually okay, but I mean, if you're relying on foundation with SPF, you're not putting it on thick enough to get that true SPF benefit. So I definitely prefer a sunscreen first and then, foundation if that's what you're going to do.
Oh, that's great. I was going to ask you that. Okay, so tinted sunscreen is okay alone, but if you're doing foundation, that's not okay alone. Then do tinted sunscreen first, then a foundation, or any sunscreen, then a foundation.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's really, really, I lost my train of thought, but I was thinking of something when you were talking that I was like, oh my gosh, that's such an eye-opening thing about with the makeup and the tinted sunscreen. And I always tell the teenagers, like when they go, oh, I'm going to look so dorky when I go hiking with my friends. I say, well, it's better to look dorky 1 hour a day than it is to look really bad for the rest of your life. Then you can look hot on the weekends, right? When you get dressed up.
I know, but it is so hard because again, they just can't, they really struggle. We've already talked about this, but they just really struggle to appreciate those consequences. So trying to show them pictures of skin that's had way too much exposure and, skin cancers removed and all this stuff. And I mean, we gotta keep trying though, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for anyone listening though, the key important components is to save your money and not get so many products because it just will lead to irritated, angry skin, and you just need a couple steps in the morning. And it's good to get that routine down because as you get older, you're going to want more for your skin. So cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen in the morning, cleanser, moisturizer at night. Mm-hmm. Maybe add in a vitamin C in the morning if you're in the sun or a high pollution area. I don't love L-ascorbic acid. I prefer like THD ascorbate or sodium ascorbyl phosphate or a more stable form of vitamin C. Mm-hmm. And what else? Do they need eye creams, any of that kind of stuff?
No, but I was going to say, a lot of sunscreens now, they incorporate an antioxidant like vitamin C or vitamin E. So it may be that you don't necessarily have to do, when you're younger, that separate vitamin C component. But I do agree that you definitely, if you're going to be using vitamin C's, you probably want those more stable versions. Sorry, you asked me a question at the end and I backtracked.
I was wondering if they need eye cream, or if someone has acne, where do they put it in that step? Because it's often obvious to us to go from thinnest product to thickest product. Mm-hmm. I think it's not obvious for most people, like what order of steps to go in.
Yeah, so I definitely do not think that kids necessarily need a dedicated eye cream. I honestly am not sure that most adults do. I mean, a lot of times we can get those same ingredients that are in our facial products and just extend it up to include the eyelid skin. Now that
and the neck and the chest, I agree 100%.
I don't necessarily think unless like you have puffiness and you want a caffeine product that, you don't have caffeine in the rest of your skincare, maybe then it makes sense. But I think that's a lot of overhyped a lot, and kids definitely don't need it. In terms of order, like if a kid is starting to break out, I think the most important things are to be sure that they're dialed in with the consistency, okay, of cleansing and using sunscreen, maybe moisturizer, depending on what's going on and what their preferences are. But the consistency of that for a while, because a lot of times they're not. Maybe they're washing their face once a week, okay? So it's dialing in that consistency. And then if they're still having problems, adding in actives that make sense for what's going on. So let's say that they're starting to get some, whiteheads and blackheads. Maybe they want to add in a cleanser that has salicylic acid. That still keeps it pretty gentle, but it's going to deep clean those pores a little bit more. Maybe they want to do an over-the-counter retinoid that is for acne, like adapalene or Differin as the brand name. And so that would go on after they cleanse and then before their moisturizer. So those are two great over-the-counter products that I think are fairly mild and tolerable, that can be easily added into skincare, a skincare regimen for a kid who's starting to break out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good point. Okay, so let's do some myth busters.
Yes.
Okay, what are the top 3 things you hear about that people have heard on social media that are completely false? Or more false than true. Let's just say more false than true, because we don't really live in a world where everything's so black and white. What do you think of red light masks? Let's do that one.
I was thinking that was the top thing that came to my head as I was thinking of others. I do think red light can be helpful, but I do think you have to be really consistent with it. And I do think the benefits are fairly mild. But I do think there's some reasonable evidence suggesting some benefit with consistency with a product that is reasonably powered.
I agree. I fully agree. I mean, it boosts mitochondria. It's just that the devices aren't regulated and we don't always know what's the right distance, what's the fluence, what are the settings of the red light. I use a panel personally because I want to treat all my body the same. But there's a sweet spot, like there's a biphasic curve where not enough red light will not stimulate mitochondria, and then too much will actually produce too much reactive oxygen species, and then you're getting more inflammation than you wanted in the first place. So I agree. I'm not a fan of the mask so much because my face isn't separate from the rest of me.
Yeah, I mean, at least if you're doing a mask, you're treating your whole face. I'm definitely not a fan of these wands that like spot treat an area.
Tell me what that is about.
I guess it's just a way to have a less expensive product that still
is
can
it a light?
Be sold as a red light. Yeah, you can get these little red lights that are just wands that you hold hold to treat specific spots. So I mean, imagine how long that's going to take to like treat your entire face if that's what you're trying to use it for. So at least a mask, you're covering a whole area. But yeah, you can now get products that brands have like their neck version and their hand gloves. But I agree, the panel is nice, but those are obviously more expensive.
Mm-hmm. I've had the same one for 5 years and I haven't replaced a light bulb yet.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? And I do it every morning for about 15 minutes. But I think it's a bonus add-on. I mean, we want to go back to prioritizing things. So probably sunscreen and cleanser are always going to be our top 2 things. And then we add little things at a time. These are not necessities. They're sort of like dessert after a healthy meal, right? Like I don't think I wouldn't prescribe red light for people, for teens especially. I just wouldn't. Okay, so what about derma rollers? What do you think about derma rollers or at-home microneedling devices?
Not a fan.
Of either or just the derma roller?
I am not a fan, I think, of either, but definitely not the roller. I just think it introduces too much potential to tear your skin. And even with like the stamping versions of these, I think that there's a lot of risk in terms of like cleaning it, being sure that there's, infection risk is controlled. It just makes me a little bit nervous.
I agree, because what we're trying to do in these, you probably get sent a lot. I get sent a lot of these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to know we're not selling out. We can get paid a lot of money to advocate these things. And I just won't, because with microneedling, we're doing controlled trauma in the skin to stimulate collagen. But too much trauma is always going to be a scar, which is why, like with laser treatments over the years, I've seen so many people with terrible scarring because they've had really bad lasers. So while something can give you really good results, if it's not done properly, it can cause scarring, which is not really reversible. Okay, what about those cold rollers, those ice rollers?
I'm okay with those as long as you're again, there's always risk with everything that we do. You could certainly really traumatize your skin if you hold one of those too long on a certain spot. But, for puffiness around the eyes, I struggle with that. So sometimes if it's a morning and I'm getting up early, I'll do a little bit of that. Acne, I do think if you have a really inflamed acne bump that it can be helpful.
Okay.
And, I think it's pretty safe and easy. So I like those. I'm okay with that.
Not so harmful and maybe some results. So
Exactly.
We're really like anti-harm. If there's a risk of harm, we're kind of against it. Okay, yeah, you know what I do for puffiness? I'll do 30 to 50 jumping jacks and drink a bunch of water because I figure that kind of stimulates my lymphatics.
No, I love that. But, if I'm like trying to hurry up and get out the door or, get on camera for something right away, it's like I need like a fast fix. I don't have the time to down the water, but obviously very important to stay hydrated, get adequate sleep, all of those things too.
Right, I know, always. What about, I said we wouldn't have to go here, but what about the salmon sperm? I'm sorry, I think this is just so crazy. Okay, what about salmon sperm?
I think that it could be helpful. I definitely have seen, okay, so I don't use it. I have not brought this into my practice, so I don't have any like firsthand like experience with patients, but I do follow a lot of people who use this in their practice and do have patients who seem to really like this a lot. And it's been a treatment over in Korea for a really long time. But it's hard to know because like most of the time it's used in a very detailed regimen, and people who are getting a lot of other procedures. So, okay, great. They look amazing. Their skin is all glowy, but what are the other things that they're doing that are contributing to it as well? So that's tough to sort out. But yeah, I don't exactly know how they get it, but it is an animal product. I kind of think of myself as an animal lover. So, I guess from what I understand very superficially, that the salmon are not hurt in this procedure and they can like continue to live. So I'm not opposed to trying it, but I don't know that it's like this panacea that currently it's just it's a huge viral trend.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to lean in and hear more.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be a trend that comes and goes a little bit or is used in conjunction with other things. I think if I had a daughter or if I had a certain amount of money, I'd probably direct my funds towards something else at this point. It's kind of how I look at it, but I'm just absolutely not sort of person. That's why I wanted to ask you, because you're definitely more on the cutting edge of trends than I am.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary of it. I do think that if it's kind of like the red light, like if you're doing everything else and, you're getting maybe a more aggressive laser procedure every once in a while and you're really dialed in on your skincare, maybe, and you're getting microneedling and maybe you want, every once in a while to have that microneedled in. Oh, okay, maybe if you're comfortable with the source.
Yeah. For teens, we're looking at instilling a regimen and a routine for you to start taking care of yourself. That's not complicated. That's not going to hurt you. As an adult, we're doing a little bit more proactive things for targeting pigmentation or aging. And that's where, like, red light and exosomes, I find help healing post-procedures. Yet I cycle them in and out of the routine and the ritual. So, okay, so if a teenager has, say their parents give them $150 budget a month, how should they use it?
Well, I think if they're sticking to the
obviously on your skincare.
Yeah, I initially was going to say that, and then I don't want to say that, which it still would not cost that much money. But I think that it would be hard to spend that much money if we stayed in the confines of my recommendations of a cleanser, moisturizer, and sunscreen. I would love to say maybe do what I do and buy like multiple sunscreens, because I think that's fun, right? You have tinted ones, you have untinted ones, you have different brands that have different feels, they layer differently. So, maybe work on your sunscreen collection. But in terms of like other things that they might want to do, I guess is what you're asking, like what other things beyond the typical regimen is what you're asking.
Yeah, like are there supplements, are there foods, are there devices, are there any other things outside of just the topical skincare we talked about that someone can do when they're younger that will help them have good skin throughout their lifetime?
So I do think it's reasonable to start a polypodium supplement. And I did recently read an article or saw something published about the youngest age that it was studied in. And now I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say it was like about 6. It was young.
It was 4 to 7.
Was it 4 to 7?
Yeah, somewhere in there. It was fine.
Yeah.
It's a fern extract, Polypodium leucotomus. We've talked about it before with Dr. Katie Varman. There's 2 dermatologists that make supplements that I know about containing polypodium. There's Inner Glow Vitamins and then Soul Care MD that are made by Dr. Noreen Galaria and then Dr. Katie Varman, and they're both like very intentional about the way they created these supplements. And one of them's a gummy, which, it's easier for the teens to take, I find. My boys will take that. And the other one's a capsule. And then one of them is like a hard pill. So, but go ahead with the polypodium. Like, just take it every day? Yeah,
I think take it every day is totally reasonable, definitely in the summer months. And maybe that makes sense in like the Midwest or something where there's, less sun exposure. But again, I think it's a routine thing, just like the sunscreen. Like I'm never going to really tell someone that they should stop at certain times of the year because then you just fall out of the habit. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a reasonable everyday one to take. In terms of like other supplements, I mean, I definitely am an advocate of certain other supplements for adults, but like for kids, that's probably as far as I go, unless there's something we're trying to address. So if someone is having acne and maybe they don't have the best diet, I mean, of course, I do talk to them about ways to change their nutrition, improve their gut health, but I may recommend a probiotic, for example.
Which probiotic do you like for acne?
So there's one on Amazon, which I'm not going to be able to remember the name of, but the one I have in my office is from Face Reality, and it has the typical bacteria that were generally studied. I'm going to blank on these now too.
Like lactobacillus rhamnosus.
The rhamnosus. Yeah. And then there's one other one, but it contains both of those. So I will usually recommend that particularly if someone has like a kind of a not great diet, lots of processed foods, lots of sugary foods. I will obviously talk to them about that, but then encourage a probiotic.
Yeah, I agree.
If someone has, is struggling with rosacea, for example, I may recommend like an omega-3 supplement. And maybe there's other things too, but those are sort of like the for sure supplements that I might suggest with somebody. I'd love to know your take if you know about this Skin Better supplement that just launched.
I saw that. And I saw there was a 5-part series that a bunch of people, like from Dr. Valaki to, I'm blanking on her name.
Oh my gosh, that she does all Dr. Zoe
Draelos. Yeah, she's been, she has such an interesting background as a chemist, and I am really intrigued with it actually.
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued. The price point's a little high for me to want to commit at this point because I do take a lot of supplements. I am intrigued, I'm always a little hesitant though, like regarding some of the studies that people set up to be perfect for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is true. I mean, of course, they show like really beautiful images of, decreased evidence of the glycation of collagen and like these biopsies. But I think it's really interesting. And if it does work, not only implications really for the skin and maintaining our collagen there, but I mean, why wouldn't it help collagen in the rest of our body?
Exactly. Like I love the inside out approach. And I think we really we always believed there was no way to reverse glycation. So I always think of it as like our body starts to cook from the inside out from the minute we're born. And it's just a matter of how slow we can cook it, right? So the fact that maybe we can reverse some of this glycation where the glycation, by the way, is just when sugar molecules bind with different proteins in our body, whether it's a blood vessel or the collagen in our skin, and it makes it really rigid and stiff. And that's why people end up with like deep creases rather than like the resiliency of the skin. So if there's a way to reverse that, that's game changing. I will probably try it because I end up trying almost all of them. I've tried the supplements with Vitamedica, with Glycid Skin from years ago. Like, there's just so many I've tried over the years that I will probably try it. I'm just more of a learner, observer for a little while, try it for a little while, and then things will disappear or stick around at that point.
Yeah, I started taking it.
Have you noticed anything?
It's
hard to say.
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I do all these other things too, so it's so hard to know. Like,
do you want me to biopsy your skin?
But to your point, I mean, I do have some patients that are on it. But to your point, it is like expensive, and it's really interesting the way that, and I have not seen like a reason or chatted with somebody on their team to like get the exact reasoning of this, but you really start high dose, like 6 pills a day for a month, and then you go down to 4 pills a day. So I mean, you go through a lot of supplement to get amped up on this. And I don't know, do you have to do that? Like, is there some reason that you have to do that? Because that's a lot of money to go through.
And a lot of pills.
I mean, there's no problem. I mean, they're capsules. They're small. They go down easily. It's not a problem. But it's just, it's a lot of money, particularly at that beginning.
What's the mechanism of action? I'm blanking on it. How does
so
it
it's
work?
It's a rosemary extract.
Can't you just add rosemary to your food? That's kind of what I walked away from thinking. Maybe if I just add more rosemary to my food.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know. But they do say that it is a specific extract, and they had to go through this special process to distill it, but I don't know beyond that. But
yeah, I don't know either.
Interesting.
I mean, it goes back to the fact that our skin is an inside-out job, whether it's screaming at us because we have some inflammation going on internally, as you mentioned earlier, or whether we can potentially make our skin look better by doing something from the inside. The easiest thing is food, just having good food choices. So, I mean, I love all that. This is a great discussion. I think we're going to be evolving more towards an inside-out approach. And I studied nutrition undergrad, so I've always had that kind of interest. And what I learned was basically opposite of what we believe now, and we're ever evolving. It was the low-fat, high-carb phase, and our skin is a bilipid membrane. Why would we not want to have healthy fats? But unhealthy fats will do things as well. So, yeah, it's really, really interesting. Okay, so what else do you recommend? Anything else that I didn't touch on?
Oh my gosh, we talked about so many things.
Right?
Well, one other, I don't know, it is not actually a myth, but a trend that I would love to chat about and ask if you've heard of this is you're aware, I'm sure you're aware of the UV index. And so for people listening, the UV index takes into account your location, the elevation of where you are, the temperature, and tells you the rate of UV exposure you're getting on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Well, obviously it was created so that we can understand, this is a time where you might need to be more protected. You'd want to be more careful if you're outside because you're going to be getting more radiation from the sun. Well, kids now, they are using this, I like to say, for evil. There is this huge push. I mean, it's all over social media. Kids using this like that's when they want to go outside to tan. So they will call, I mean, parents post about this, like their kid will call from, high school and be like, I got to come home. The UV is going to be 8 today. I got to work on my tan. So it's just, I wanted to point out that trend to let people know that's not what we should be doing with the UV index.
That's so interesting. I didn't think tans were trendy anymore.
Oh my gosh, they are so trendy.
Oh my God.
There is this huge backlash against sunscreen for a lot of reasons, I think. But people are against sunscreen. They are against smart sun protection measures, unless I think they have someone, a trusted source that they can go to, or a parent that's really into this. But yeah, there's this huge surge in tanning now and avoiding sunscreen.
Well, if you are tanning, you might as well not use any skincare. I just want to say that. That's ridiculous. I mean, I did it. I didn't wear sunscreen until I was 30. And I remember when it first came out, I was like, ew, why would anyone want to use that?
Yeah.
I specifically go in the sun to get a tan. That's the main reason. And now I regret it, now that I know what I know, but it's almost reckless knowing what we know now. It's sort of like my mom smoked when she was pregnant with me. She goes, we didn't know any better, but now we know better. So you can't unknow what you already know. So now that you're hearing this from us, you know better, and you can't unknow what you already know. So whether it's the sun causing dried skin cells that are going to clog your pores and cause more acne, might look better for like a day or two, but then it ends up rebounding and look worse, or wrinkles down the road, just watch the movie Something About Mary and you'll know what we're talking about. Anyway, I love having you on, Dr. Jeffy. I feel like we could talk all day, but I really want everyone to be able to find your website and follow you on social. You have so many great educational things. So can you let everyone know how to find you?
Yes. So on socials, my handle is at Brooke Jeffy MD, and I am on TikTok and Instagram. And if you're local to Scottsdale, check out my practice website, which is brookejeffymd.com.
We will have it all in the show notes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Listen to Your Skin by Moon and Skin. It's an honor to be part of your skincare journey. And if you love this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave us a glowing review, and share it with someone who's passionate about their skincare journey. And please connect with us on social to ask your questions, which will drive future educational episodes.